O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Madam Clerk, would you take?
Councillor Mackey,
Present.
Councillor McKay,
Here.
Councillor Carlton, Councillor Pringle,
Present.
Councillor McQueen will be joining us momentarily. Councillor Nielsen.
Here.
Councillor Patterson. Councillor Dickert. Councillor Keaveney. Councillor Kentner. Councillor Body. Councillor Gregg.
Present.
Warden Milne.
Present.
Councillor Dobreen. Councillor Matrosovs. Councillor Bourdignon.
Present.
Councillor Eccles. Councillor Hutchinson.
Present.
We have all members present with the exception of Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, Wyandot, Wyandot peoples on whose traditional territories we gather and whose ancestors signed treaties with our ancestors. We recognize also the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all of its diverse peoples. Is there any declaration of interest regarding any item on today's council agenda? Seeing none, if one should arise, you can make us aware of it at that time. We have adoption of the minutes of the March 9 Council and Committee of the Whole minutes. Would someone care to move adoption of Councillor Matrosovs, Councillor Body? Any discussion? I will note that there was an amendment or a change, a clerical change from which was brought to our attention. Thank you, Councillor Gregg. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Committee of the Whole closed minutes dated March 9. Someone care to move those minutes? Councillor Keaveney, Councillor Hutchison. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And the Long-Term Care Committee of Management meeting minutes from March 14th of this year. Someone care to move those minutes? Councillor Mackey and Councillor Carlton. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. And the Long-Term Care Committee of Management closed meeting minutes dated March 14th. Councillor Patterson, Councillor Dickert. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We have no closed meeting matters related to those. Today, we have a report from the Grey Bruce Public Health. Dr. Era will join us here momentarily. Someone care to move the acceptance for information, that report? Councillor Nielsen, Councillor Patterson. Dr. Era, good morning. You have the floor, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Warden. Good morning, Council. Thank you for having me. The highlight from the minutes is related to the post-emergency COVID situation updates. It has been stable and very reassuring. Just in terms of background, around October, there was the highest surgery we've seen in the fall. And as a proxy, the number of new cases in high risk settings, which is the hospital, long-term care, and emergency services, was around 30 new cases per day. That decreased, and then there was a smaller surge around 10 new cases per day around the New Year's. And since then, there has been a decrease and stability of around 5 new cases per day, which is very reassuring for the activity of the virus. Number of outbreaks currently in long-term care is 0. There is only 1 outbreak in one department in a hospital department, which is quite manageable. Number of hospitalization is low, has been low continuously. So as a update for the situation of COVID, is it as good as possible, knowing that the virus will continue to circulate. So that's the highlight of the update. Mr. Warden, open to questions as always.
Thank you, Dr. Era. Are there any questions for Dr. Era? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, sir, for your report. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion regarding the report? In front of you, the minutes? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We have one bylaw to authorize the clerk or the warden and clerk to enter into an agreement between the Corporation Town of Hanover and the Corporation County of Gray for a tax increment equivalent grant. Would someone care to move that, please? Councillor DeBreen, Councillor Dickert. Thank you. Any questions, discussion? I'm not looking over there. Councillor Eccles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Just the first question I have a couple of questions on this, but the first one is the legal description of the property. In one spot, it's noted as being concession 1 NDR Bentic, part 2. And then further on down in a couple of other schedules, it's, I believe, 631 or something like that. 651, 23rd Ave, Hanover. Has Westgray taken over Hanover and this is part of Bentic now, or is it the other way around? One of them's on page 35 is where on Schedule A. Well, and Savannah's looking and she's pointing a finger that way. So I take it must be towards a legal mind on the end of the horseshoe over there.
Michael, do you have an answer? There you go.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden. Just looking, the page 35 is the legal description in the county's agreement. I suspect that the second description that you're seeing is the description that was included in Hanover's agreement, which is included as a schedule to the county's agreement. The reference to Bentic refers to the legal description of the lands. They sit within the town of Hanover, but they were lands that were originally described, as I would believe, under the Crown Survey on the Bentic side, but sit within the town boundaries presently.
That wouldn't have been changed, so all of Hanover is still legally described as part of Bentic.
Through you, Mr. Warden. No, it would depend on where the original boundaries of the original Crown Survey laid out sometime in the 1800s, I believe, would have been for the town, subject to any adjustments since then. The way Crown Surveys work is they are fixed documents at a point in time, and then they refer to portions of, if there's reconfigurations and boundaries, you still refer to the original geographic township that was laid out way back in the day. So it's just a technical matter of describing the property. It's how MPAC describes the lots.
And go further. Go ahead. Is there anything in the bylaw that describes or gives us an idea of what these houses are with the amount of tax incentive that is going into this, that they will be attainable or affordable? I only found one reference to it being that 142 units attainable. But there was no description or anything in there as to what is attainable, what is affordable, and or how long that has to be kept, because in a number of other agreements previous, it was for 10 or 20 years. Is this until the tax incentive leaves, or what? How does this end up being attainable? Because it's not described in the bylaw at all.
Who, oh, Mike, okay.
Through you, Mr. Warden. The bylaw itself enacts an agreement between the county and Hanover. The way Teagues work in counties is that they are the responsibility of the lower tier to implement. And what we do, the county would do, is then refund Hanover for the portion of the Teague that is there. So what this agreement bylaw does is authorize an agreement that responds to the Hanover agreement, which is Schedule C. It's the one with the dueling legal descriptions. So to that extent, that's as far as I could speak to where the requirements lie. Ultimately, when the county receives notice from Hanover that the refund has been paid in accordance with their program, the county would send a check to Hanover to make them whole for the county portion of the taxes that are rebated.
And it's certainly on a de-escalation clause or term over the 5 years. Teague describes it as being something that starts at 100% in the first year and then dropping to 0. Was it a typo in here that they are at 100% and only dropped to 65%? Because in my description, I didn't know that that could be changed. But maybe Savannah wants to answer.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. It's up to every municipality in terms of how they want to develop their program within our parameters. So you can go up to 10 years. You can do 5, you can choose your own percentages. So it's each municipality's determination of what that looks like. I believe in Hanover's case, and Mayor Patterson can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a ceiling of 525,000 per building is what Hanover was willing to go to, and they made the adjustments of the percentages within that amount. So that's why this one doesn't go to 0, it goes to 65 and then becomes 0 after that. So year 6, it's full taxes that would come, but that was the arrangement that Hanover was comfortable with. And then we will match that suit for the county.
And it was interesting that we would be doing this. And then further on in the meeting this morning, we're sending a letter to the Minister of Finance and the minister, a lot of ministers, further to the city of Owen Sound on funding levels from the property tax, that we don't have enough. We probably have got one for $108 million, how we're going to finance that. And on private development, we are financing, the taxpayers of West Grey, the taxpayers of Owen Sound, 8 other municipalities, of a growth aspect in Hanover. It's our county, that's fine. But it's going to be difficult to send a letter saying that we haven't got enough money. And then this morning, we're turning around and giving a private developer into this to try and attain through the property taxes a development of this nature. I find it difficult, but we'll see what the conversation goes when we get to supporting the letter from Owen Sound, supporting the letter from AMO of looking at other aspects, and that the county, how much we're putting in to this project. I find it difficult that the property tax is being pushed into subsidizing housing, which I don't believe that the property taxes can handle. And if we take this on, it's just another download from the municipality. And I'm concerned with that, where we are with our finances. So with that, thank you very much for the questions and the answers.
Through you, Mr. Ward. Thank you, Councillor Eccles. Any other question? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I think it's important for this council to realize and recognize that this is a $60 million investment that will increase housing stock, not just for Hanover, but for the area. It will also have the spin-off of jobs. And the attainable rent will be market rent, whatever the market will bear at the time. So it is a good investment, not just for Hanover, but for Grey County.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions? Councillor Eccles.
Interesting, the map that shows that, how much development has gone on in this area. Because the map that we have, I believe it's the one maybe from Pat on the redevelopment of the road that's in front of this development. Not that this development comes out onto 24 Avenue. But it was just interesting, the map that's showing there shows that there's no development in that area. To the east side. Although Barry Christelbrink has built, I don't know how many homes, so there is certainly a lot of development, just for everybody's information, in that area already.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. News and celebrations. Council? Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Mr. Ward, and good morning, everyone. And I just wanted to announce on behalf of our Meaford Rotary Club that they will be hosting an Easter egg hunt on April the 8th, 12 noon sharp at beautiful Joe Park. And registration is no charge and can happen at www.meafordrotary.com. And the Easter Bunny will be making a grand entrance at noon precisely.
Thank you, Councillor Keaveney. And anytime the Easter Bunny shows up, it is a grand entrance. Councillor Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I would just like to announce Maple Magic is continuing this weekend at Regal Point Elk Farm on Saturday and Sunday. And then the annual Kemble Maple Syrup Tour will take place on April 1st with 7 stops throughout Kemble, and the main base being Kemble, Sarawak, and Zion Keppel United Churches.
Thank you, Councillor Carlton. Easter chocolate and syrup. Sweet news. Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Warden Milne. Good morning, County Council. I am pleased to announce that there's a number of activities coming up in Southgate. First of all, rib dinner at the Optimist Hall on April 1st. It is sure to be another sweet treat of maple ribs. The Maple Fest is held on Easter weekend, April 8th and 9th at the Love's Sugar Bush, and all are welcome. And Dundalk is actually organizing a punny day of activities filled with activities throughout the downtown. The businesses might have hopscotch, there might be 3-legged races. We don't know yet. It's up to the community to come forward with that, but they're coining a phrase. It's sure to be filled with hoppiness throughout the morning, 10 till 1. Thank you.
Things are hopping. Councillor Nielsen.
There we go. Thank you very much, Warden. This evening, Grey Bruce OPP and in partnership with the municipality of Greyhounds are holding a human trafficking information session in Markdale at the Markdale complex, the arena complex, at 7 p.m. So just sharing that news that if anybody is interested in coming out to see what's happening and how the OPP are trying to handle it, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Nielsen. Councillor Mattress.
Thank you, Warden. And we have coming up on March 30th, beginning at 4:30 p.m. We have our 40th anniversary of our Beaver Valley outreach. So the AGM is going to be happening from 4:30 onward. There's a meet and greet. So Beaver Valley Outreach has for 40 years touched so many lives within our community and regionally as well. You know, often participants are taking advantage of the programs for our children, for our youth, for our seniors, for our adults, from boundaries beyond our Blue Mountains as well. And so it's a time for us to gather and celebrate all the volunteerism that's gone on behind it as well. So there will be the formal AGM after the meet and greet, and then there will be a light supper. If you're interested in attending, please reach out to BVO if you contact them, just to let them know so that they can accommodate for numbers. But it will be a chance to not just conduct the business, but take a moment to really reflect on the impact. Our community would not look like what it does today without the help and support of Beaver Valley Outreach.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Sure, go ahead. CEO.
Good morning, Council. You will recall at the end of January, the week of January 17th, was the Hockey Day in Canada event here in Owen Sound. And it was a great event. I think we had an overwhelming positive response that was made possible by the hard work of not only the staff at the City of Owen Sound, but many, many volunteers. And this week I came back to my office from a meeting and was both surprised and pleased to get a thank you note from the folks who undertook the Hockey Day event, but they also left us with this jersey, and it's a Grey County Hockey Day in Canada jersey. So I just thought that was really, really nice, and I wanted to give a shout out to Jim McNanaman, who dropped this off, and to let everyone know that we'll find an appropriate place of pride to put this up here at the county. And just thanks again. It was a really lovely thing for them to do.
Thanks, Kim. And indeed, thank you to the town or the City of Owen Sound. Yeah, Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Warden Milne, and my apologies. I should have mentioned this when I had the floor before, but tomorrow is Agnes MacPhail's birthday. And on Sunday, the Ainsley Church, through the South Grey Museum, is holding a birthday celebration from 2 to 4 in honor of Agnes MacPhail.
Thank you. I believe Jill Patterson has some news and celebrations for us. Jill, welcome.
Good morning, Warden and Grey County Council. I just wanted to quickly share some highlights from Grey Roots and some upcoming events. We've had another fantastic March break at the museum. We saw over 600 people through the doors, and a huge thank you to our program coordinator, Laura Arnold, who organized a variety of programs for families, from cooking maple dumplings on a campfire to sewing little stuffies that had a simple circuit inside so they could light up. So we're really grateful to her, and we're grateful to our wonderful volunteers who brought our historic houses and main building to life for the program participants. We've also had an amazing response to our kids camp registration going live. It was launched 9 a.m. on Monday morning, and by 10:20, our first week was full, and we expect to be fully booked by the end of the month, if not sooner. I've also got some great experiences happening at the museum I wanted to share. The Archives Spring Lecture Series runs Tuesdays at 1 p.m. until April 11th. Upcoming lectures explore the use of miniatures and models in historical displays, the Wicklows of Chatsworth, and the Meaford Tank Range. Grey Roots' first concert series, Our Roots Are Showing, starts a week from today. The series features local singer-songwriters and poets sharing stories about local people and places and connections to the world around us. The first show on March 30th is 2 singers and a poet featuring poet laureates Larry Jensen, Rob Rolfe, and Dave Hawkins. And there will be one concert per month until June. So visit Grey Roots website for all the details, and we hope to see you at the museum soon. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Jill. It's always exciting to see what's going on at Grey Roots. That indeed is a gem out there. Any other? Councillor McQueen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warden, and I think maybe you should be wearing that shirt today. Or maybe the representative from Owen Sound, or both. Anyway, just a reminder to everyone that tomorrow, Grey Bruce Federation of Agriculture, along with Grey County Federation of Agriculture, is hosting Meet the Politicians at the Katy Community Center. I think it's starting at 10 o'clock. There was, I think the clerk did circulate it just last week, maybe a reminder of that being sent out again. It's an opportunity for not only the local reps from the county, both counties, but also the MP and MPPs are invited as well. I think I'm going by memory, there's a speaker going to be talking about Bill 23 as well. So if you're able to go, and you do know if those have attended before, you usually get well fed. Mr. Warden, I know that's something that you want lots of people, you feed them. So anyway, that is coming forward. I think our delegation last meeting did mention that as well. So just as a reminder on that, and maybe the clerk, Madam Clerk, could send out a reminder or send that flyer, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. Seeing no others, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Craig, Councillor Eccles, all those in favor? That is carried. We'll now switch. We'll now carry on with our committee of the whole meeting. I'll call that to order. Is there any declaration of interest related to any matter on this agenda? Not seeing any. If one should arise, feel free to declare it. We have a delegation this morning. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Al Leach, who will be giving a presentation on the Saugeen Valley Children's Safety Village. Welcome, Al. It's always good to see you. You always have lots of good news and stories for us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Warden Milne, for the opportunity to be here again. For a start, I know it's been a few months, but I want to congratulate each and every one of you on your election or re-election. And I want to thank you for stepping forward to serve in your municipality and provide some well-deserved leadership. So thank you for that. I initially came here to only say 6 words. Thank you very much for your ongoing support. Might be more than 6, but it means an awful lot to us at the Children's Safety Village. That's all I was going to say, but then Sarah said you wanted an update. I thought one more presentation and I get my own parking spot outside. How do I move it forward, Sarah? Okay. Again, a big thank you to Grey County Council. I'm happy to be here to give you an update on what's been happening at the Children's Safety Village. As I was saying to Marilyn, my partner in crime in this Children's Safety Village back there, we're growing quicker than our pants seem to be allowing us, and we're trying to play a little bit of catch up. So next slide, please. So we, in the past year in 2022, we did some virtual programming as we're sort of coming out of the COVID pandemic, and then we switched over to on-site training. We did over 2,100 children participate in our training last year. And then we also provided opportunities in April and May for the local bus consortium, providing transportation in Blue Water area, which is all of Grey and Bruce, to host their first rider program at the Safety Village. And we do that free of charge because they're a partner in providing safety for children. In June of last year, we were going to call it our open house, but we thought we weren't quite ready for that. We said, come and visit the village. We had no idea how many guests were going to come out, including Warden Milne. We had 400 guests attend for that particular day. It was overwhelming for us. It went over extremely well, and the weather was in our favor. And then again, during the summertime, when school is closed, we open up our Safety Village for a couple of weeks in July for what we call Super Safety Days. And that's open to the general public and children from within Graham Bruce area. And we had about 150 children participate over a 5-day period last year. Next slide, please, Sarah. One of the things that was arranged through Marilyn, our president of the organization, is we want to make sure that 911 is a very important component of our program. We want to make sure that we're delivering the information correctly. So we actually made arrangements to bring our program administration staff, our instructors up here to Owen Sound to meet with the 911 center and observe, the operation there to ensure we're delivering the proper message. And that's an important part of our program. We've arranged next Friday, to host a community engagement workshop. This is our first, and we've had a very strong response from a lot of different safety agencies across Grey County, mental health included in them. And, our MPP will be meeting with us. And this is part of an OTF grant that we received back in 2022. And we're going to be promoting our partnership within the community and our safe communities. So next slide, please. We continue to do some of our own fundraising event. The really good looking guy in the top left-hand corner is me. We hosted our 8th annual golf tournament at the Highland Glen Club near Priceville. And Mayor Eccles was there to try to poke fun at me all day long, for sure. But we host 2 tournaments each year. Marilyn runs one up near Saugeen Shores where she lives, and then I host the one over in Priceville each year. And we do that to offset some of our own costs, like operating costs and our insurance costs. So money goes directly to our operating. And we have a number of sponsors that support the Safety Village in this event. So next slide, please. So without teachers and children, obviously we'd have no program at all. Now that COVID has started to abate itself, we found we're having to expand our program. We were running 2 days a week. We've now upgraded to 3 days a week. So we're running Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The program demand has increased sort of beyond our expectation. Meeting with staff yesterday, we are almost fully booked. I think we have 5 days left in April, May, and June in those 3 months. So we're otherwise booked. Probably within next week, we'll be fully booked for that for the next 3 months in totality. We're also looking at starting to open up our bookings for the fall when school starts again. We started out with 2 part-time instructors in fire and EMS and police and community safety. We now have 4 on board, respecting that some of them have other careers and other jobs, and they're working part-time for us. We need some more backup, so we're trying to bring on more staff and more volunteers into our program, so that, just in case of illness, we don't want to disadvantage any of the children. We want to be able to deliver our program and not have to cancel any events. So we're continuing to provide these programs free of charge to our classes that are attending our program. All of our current instructors are currently part of the fire and police services in Grey County. We're very pleased to have the passion and dedication of these instructors. Worked with them yesterday, getting ready for April. Next slide, please. I mentioned we talked about for 2023, we've already set our dates for Super Safety Days in July, and this is open to general public by registration. We're looking at providing seniors fire and home safety program later in 2023. We're working on this right now with our local fire instructor. They're adamant that it's an opportunity for us to move forward, using our facility, not just for children, but there's opportunities at evenings and weekends. And we think there's an excellent opportunity. As we get older, like myself, we start forgetting about a few things in our house, which checking our fire extinguishers, etc. So we feel there's an opportunity to provide some very strong update through our fire and home safety program. We've also reached out and had some minimal discussion. My neighbor happens to be part of the Mennonite community, and his father is part of the Mennonite, we're in charge of Mennonite education for Ontario. So we're going to, once a couple more weeks, we'll get them over to look at our site, and hopefully we'll engage that particular part of our community as well, because they haven't been part of it to date. They've already indicated they can look after their own busing arrangements. We started receiving requests beyond our school classes. We're already getting requests from outside organizations, private schools and day camps, and we're now looking at we have some of them already booked in for this spring, and we're trying to make sure that we can offer the same program. Again, expands our program beyond what we originally started with, which is school classes. but we don't want to, again, turn any children down, and here's an opportunity to work with more agencies within the community. Some of you, I'm not sure how many of you may have heard, we had our first Halloween in the village last fall. A lot of children over the last 2 years, because of COVID, never got out to do Halloween. 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, never experienced Halloween. So we thought we'd try a Halloween date at the village. It was on a bright sunny afternoon. Lovely weather again for us. It was done by registration. We had 150 children pre-registered for the event. We have little miniature villages or buildings in the village, and these are supplied by our sponsors. Our sponsors were there to hand out treats to the kids, as well as us in our safety village, and everybody was in costume. Marilyn kept track of every child and parent that came through the gate that day. We had a check mark. Of the 158 children, 658 showed up, plus their parents. We had over 1,500 people. Our only complaint was that the concession road from grade 10 to the drive-in theater road was solid with cars. We started running out of treats, and we had to run into town and get more, because even some of our sponsors were running out of treats. We already had some more of our sponsors say they want to part. Those that weren't participating last year want to be there for sure. So it was a great success, and it's already on the books again for this year. Next slide, please, Sarah. There it is. I already talked about the Halloween in the village. And like I said, some of our sponsors also participated and handed out candy. And I said we had to rush to town to get some more. Next slide, please. So these are some of our on-site programs. Part of our community policing, we do traffic, highway, street sign safety. And you can see the kids are, of course, they're always excited in those junior years to get in the Jeeps or get on the scooters and participate with the police officers and learning about traffic and highway safety in a miniature village. And in the background, you can see some of our sponsors. So next slide, please. So this is some of our community instructors. You can see the police officer getting ready to put the children out into the street, into the environment. Found out that kindergarten kids are not really good at the wheel, but by the time grade 1, they're really getting good at it. So it's an absolute treat to watch the smiles on these children's face and obeying the police officers that are on site. Next slide, please. This is our, we have 2 different classrooms area, one for our fire and EMS, another one for our community safety program. This is the children in our classroom and receiving instruction, from our police officer before they head out into the village and start doing some of our interactive safety, as well as riding the Jeeps and scooters. So next slide. So here's our paramedic, our fire and paramedic classroom. We're set up for children. We're set up for meetings like next week. Maryland's hosting a community engagement workshop. We've had a number of service clubs use the facility as well. First Rider Club uses it. Anybody that's sponsored at Safety Village over the past number of years, we provide this opportunity free of charge. We have the Ayton Normanby Optimists coming for a tour one evening, holding their meeting, their supper there. The District Lions Club, which serves Gray and Bruce County, have hosted a number of their cabinet meetings on site. So we do encourage other organizations to come, and I'll meet them at night or on a weekend and give them a tour and provide them an opportunity to understand a little bit more about what's going on in the village. It's all about networking and getting our word out there. Another slide, please. Okay, and this is part of our fire safety. We have Sparky's apartment. It's a fully operational kitchen. There's a bathroom motif, and we have a bedroom with fire evacuation. The facilities are accessible, and we encourage children of all walks of life and mental and physical capability to participate. We don't want any child to be disadvantaged from not being able to participate in our program. We did a special one. I'm not sure if it was on a Saturday. It was just a mid-week one last year. We had a request from the Autism Society in the county to bring a group of parents. So the children come out with their parents. So it was a day for them where they wouldn't be traumatized by a sort of a regular situation. And so we were able to provide them with some fire training, gave them an opportunity to get in our Jeeps and scooters for the day as well. So, and that went over well. So we do diverge a little bit from our school classes if we get a request such as this. So next slide, please. Again, this is just Sparky's evacuation bedroom. We actually fill the room full of smoke. Kids have to stop, drop and roll. They listen to the fire alarm going off or the smoke detector, so they understand the sound. That's another reason we did the autism separately. If we had a loud sound, we could have scared the children. So we did a separate day, and then the fire fire instruction staff we had there realized, the group that they had was the autistic children. So they were able to sort of tone down the loud screams of the fire extinguisher. But in this particular classroom situation, the kids stop, drop and roll, and they climb out through that little window. We've created an inside outdoor motif, and the kids actually climb down a little ladder. And that gives them an opportunity to really understand what evacuation is all about. And this is, an exciting part, because the Children's Safety Village is a hands-on interactive safety training opportunity. And that's why we put the kids into little tunnels that we've created. They stop, drop and roll so they understand that concept. And then they go into the smoke-filled room, and all the children have the opportunity to participate in this. So next slide, please. One of our programs that's kind of unique, there, like I mentioned before, there are 11 other safety villages that we're operating in Ontario. I think ours is the only one providing farm safety. We are in a rural part of Ontario, and it was behooved us to put this into our program. This has expanded quite a bit last year. Pretty well all of our classes are now going through this. We used to run morning and afternoon classes, but it's becoming difficult for busing for the classes to get there early in the morning. So we have a little bit later start. So now we get a busload of 60 children. We break them up into fire, community and police, farm safety, and then they rotate through the program. So we have 3 instructors going at any one time. This is just a picture of our farm safety building. Inside there's a TV, there's benches, they get some videos, and they get some hands-on farm safety training inside as well. And there's the Grey Bruce Farmers Week mural that some of you have seen in the past, and that's mounted inside this farm safety building. Next slide, please. This is just some of the farm safety lessons. There's the children getting a video lesson before they move over to get some of the hands-on experience in the farm safety building. Next slide, please. Mention our super safety days. This was last year. We have our partners, Grey County Paramedics, West Grey Fire. We're there for part of the day. And we're really, really pleased with the support that we get from the county when we have these super safety days. We've had boats and ATVs and fire trucks, everything you can imagine there. And we really appreciate the support that we get. And the children get an opportunity to climb around in the fire trucks and inside the ambulance. Part of the safety training is to get them to understand and not be frightened. If there's a situation where they need to be in an ambulance, we want them to understand that this is a safe place to be. There's a lot of equipment in there. It looks a little scary for a child. So that here they have an opportunity to actually see it in a positive situation. So next slide, please. Again, these are some of our other programs. We've often had Paw Patrol come out, and I accept any one of you to volunteer the next time we have a special event to wear the Paw Patrol costume. I lost 40 pounds last time I wore it. I didn't realize how warm it was inside there. Don't tell the kids it was me inside that costume, really, please. Anyways, that's part of our super safety days, and the children are welcomed by Paw Patrol as we start the day. So next slide, please. One of the things we have in the village is a roundabout, and the kids are taught how to enter and come in and out of a roundabout situation. And we're very pleased Cedar Well Excavating provided that opportunity. That was part of their donation for that traffic circle roundabout. So it's a big hit. So next slide, please. One of the things that we put in last year was a donation from the District Lions Club, which serves all the Grey and Bruce County. As I made a donation, and we are creating a water and safety program. We can talk about shore safety, swimming alone, currents, the danger of swimming without your parents or guardians watching you. So this is part of our interactive. As they come out of the classroom of the police officer, they talk about hydro danger, which you can see in the background. Then they move on to this water safety program here. So we're very pleased, to have the support of the Lions Club in the community. And I just digress very quickly because you provided a segue a little while ago about celebrations. Mount Forest Lions Clubs are celebrating 85 years of service in the community. That's in May. And as someone said, without these service organizations, communities would not be what they were. And I apologize, Gordon Milne, for digressing. Next slide, please. These are some of the structures in our miniature village. You can see Hydro One, West Stereo, a car dealership, a children's chapel, a church, another dealership. These are buildings that help make the village what it is. Next slide, please. Just some more Roberts Farm equipment at a Chesley area and the Mount Forest and Meaford area now. Put in a building in 2021. And then last year we added a new building, Fresh Mart, sponsored partially through Loblaws, put a building. We're pretty excited. That was built in time for a Halloween event. So again, these are some of the other dealerships that make the village what it is. Next slide, please, Sarah. So if you can make a difference in the life of a child, would you? So 2022 is a very busy year for us, a very exciting year. Saw a lot of our dreams realized and a lot of positive feedback from our teachers and our classes. As indicated, 2023 is shaping up to be even busier. We've added staff, we've added an extra day to our programming. We look forward in the future to having a full-time executive administrator on site and being able to offer this on a full-time basis. That's our initial goal. When we started, that was part of our mandate, to head upwards to 10,000 children a year. We're now doing about 4,000 a year, and we're only doing it on a part-time basis. But, we need to have the dedicated and passionate volunteers or paid volunteers in some cases. And we're also looking for other volunteers who can spend a day, an hour at the safety village just to help out, to put the Jeeps and scooters out on site. And when we have a school coming, whether it's from Meaford or Chatsworth or from Owen Sound, we contact the local fire departments in that particular area. If you want to send representatives from your fire department down to the village and work with us for that day, there's some synergy there for the fire staff and the children to get to know one another. And so we always offer that opportunity. We know that they're off on call. There are a lot of volunteer fire departments, but if they can send a rep, and they often do. So I've seen some staff from all over Grey County attending when we have a program there. So that way we let them know and they can come down and participate in the day. So we want to continue to grow and we want to continue to make a difference in the life of our children. Our goal is to reduce childhood injuries and death through providing hands-on interactive safety training. Next slide, please, Sarah. Again, great big thank you to the Grey County Council and the staff, for Sarah, especially for making me aware of this opportunity to be here. You are helping make a difference. Your contribution just lights us up and knows that we are in a position to carry on with our programming. Thank you very much again, and any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any of those.
Thank you all for your presentation. Is there any questions for Mr. Leach? Councillor Matrosovs.
Thank you. Through you, the warden, certainly this has been a very valuable update because although I was familiar with it because I used to serve on the Grey County Farm Safety Association, I think the fact that you're expanding your programs is an excellent reason to be able to share this news throughout the county. So my question through the warden to Mr. Leach is, I do know that you advertise your events on Facebook and Instagram, for example, but your website has so much information, a lot of it directed towards the booking a program concept. So for the sake of parents and grandparents, such as myself, who would like to be able to make use of the public open days that you refer to in July, as well as your Halloween event, and do you have a system in which interested adults can sign up for an email list where we'll get notification when you have those? Because not every grandparent is going to be on Facebook or Instagram or be able to watch it when it's time to sign up for those programs.
Nope. There we go. We're actually doing a newsletter. And once we do the newsletter, it's law now that you actually have to have approval to be able to send that letter out. And so once we have the newsletter, which it'd be in the next couple of months, We'll send out stuff on Facebook and Instagram and on our website, and people can sign up for that. And we're going to reach out to people too, to see if they'd like to get that update. And I just wanted to add one other thing. It's a bad news, good news thing. The reports have just come out again on how Canada is graded against other peer countries and how we look after our children. And Canada continues to be in the bottom third of all those countries. We have a really, really poor rating on how we care for our children, which is shocking to everybody that has children here in Canada. But the good news part of it is, with the Safety Village, we're really striving to make Grey and Bruce the #1 place for children to grow up healthy and safe. Canada as a whole, and even just to point this out, the Canadian government basically has provided no funding for the Safety Village and does not provide funding for other safety villages. But other countries, that's what they focus on, is children's health and safety. And we've got a long way to go. And with our community engagement workshop next Friday, we're bringing together organizations in our area on how we can work together to make things better for Grey and Bruce. And an example was our Halloween in the Village. We didn't charge for it because we want to make sure, regardless of physical, mental, or economic challenges, that everybody can attend. And we just put on our posters that food bank donations would be greatly appreciated. And we ended up with over $400 for the food bank and 2 truckloads, which nothing to us. We were going to have the event anyway. So this workshop we're having is getting groups together and saying, you know, how can we help each other to make things better? And Grey County has been a tremendous asset to us for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marilyn. Anyone else? Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Al, once again, you didn't disappoint. I've heard the presentation a number of times, and every time I'm certainly inspired by it. You thanked us, but we certainly need to thank you and all the volunteers for the work that you're doing on behalf of the children of Grey and Bruce. So thanks very much.
Anyone else? Well, thank you again, Al. Sincere thanks from the county. We appreciate all the time you put into this, because I know you've put in countless hours and all the volunteers. It's a well worth project, and it's well received, and it's well appreciated. Thank you, Al. And we'll double your wages for next year. Councillor DeBreen.
Thank you, Warden Milne, and to our guests, if perhaps they could leave some business cards for us to reach out to them if we have any leads on perhaps some sponsors for those golf tournaments or other events.
Good idea. Al has business cards. Just leave them with Randy there. All right. We have next is the consent agenda, unless is anyone need a break yet? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do consent, and then we'll have a break. But you feel free to step out, Councillor Eccles, if you wish. Number of consent items there. Anyone wish any of those removed for further consideration? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Warden Milne. Report TRCW 0623 is a single source award. I may not disagree at all with I'm in agreement, but I'd like just to pull that for some discussion because it is a single source.
Right. Just for council's information, the revised agenda is, and fine, Councillor Gregg, we'll pull that one for further consideration. But the revised agenda does have some changes in the consent agenda, so just to be aware of that. All right, any other items wish to be withdrawn from the consent agenda? Okay, could I have a motion to adopt the ones, Councillor Gregg and Councillor Hutchison? Or did you have a comment, Councillor Gregg?
Well, I think not seeing any other hands go up in the air, but it would be prudent of us to speak to the issue of the awardance for those tenders. There's some good news there. Just to let that go through the consent agenda and not have some good discussion. I'd like to see those then also removed. That's good news in a world right now. You see a lot of bad news. So please, if those could be also sliced out, and then I'd move the consent agenda. Those are the issuance of Gray Road 7, Gray Road 18. Oh, sorry. Let's go with M, N, and O.
Okay, we can do that. Any others? Would someone care to move adoption of the consent agenda as amended, or as amended? Counselor Mackey and Counselor Pringle. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back at as close to 11 as we can. So we'll stand at recess. 1 minute warning. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the meeting back to order. We're on to item number 6, items for direction and discussion. The first is the 2022 year-end transfers. Someone care to move that motion, please? Councillor Carlton. Councillor Mattress. Thank you very much. Sue Murray, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden. The report before you is to provide council with the estimated year-end surplus or deficit amounts per functional area and to provide staff with the authority to make adjustments necessary to finalize the county's 2022 year-end financials. Staff have reviewed year-to-date financials as of mid-February and are estimating an overall surplus of $1,589,100 for the year ending December 31st, 2022. The departmental breakdown of this surplus is contained in the second chart of the report. I will highlight the following significant variances as follows. Within corporate services, there is a total surplus of $616,000, with the majority of this surplus is due to the net supplemental and tax write-offs being higher than originally estimated within our budget. In planning and community development, there is a total surplus of $95,300 for all of the departments. Of this, there is a $3,300 surplus in planning, which includes agriculture, forestry, and trails. There is an $11,800 deficit in economic development and tourism, and a surplus of $103,800 at Grey Roots. The Grey Roots surplus can be attributable to staff vacancies and changes and less cleaning costs over the year. Human Services has an overall estimated surplus of $982,100. And this is between Ontario Works and childcare with $772,600 surplus, which is $284,000 in Ontario Works and $488,300 in early learning and childcare. And there is an anticipated $324,100 in surplus within the childcare budgets due to the 25% reduction in the childcare fees now being expensed through CWEL budget, which has been mentioned previous, but I'll give you the acronym, which is the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Program. And housing deficit has a deficit of $48,100, with the majority of this due to increased costs in snow removal and maintenance of buildings. Overall, long-term care has a surplus of $300,600. Both Grey Gables and Lee Manor have surpluses, of which Grey Gables has $31,500 and Lee Manor has $302,800, which mainly are attributable to staffing vacancies within the nursing and personal care lines and our support services. And Rockwood Terrace is projecting an $8,400 surplus with their capital budget. And the Rockwood Terrace development is expecting a deficit of $35,100, which is mainly just due to the project being a little bit more than expected in the year. Paramedic Services is projecting a deficit of $50,000, which is attributable to costs relating to vehicle operations, mainly fuel and maintenance, and medical supplies and medications. These overages are offset by savings in salaries and benefits due to staff vacancies and lower than anticipated benefit costing. Transportation Services has an overall $104,300 deficit, which is a combination of an operating deficit of $624,300, which is offset by a capital surplus of $520,200. The operational overages are in vehicle costs, fuels and parts, winter expenditures such as materials and salaries and benefits. And the salaries and benefits is due to budget changes that were approved post-budget in the year. And the capital surplus is due to a cancellation of structure 13-092 fiber wrap project that was determined not to be needed or deferred to another year. Of these surpluses, overall, there is an estimated $599,300 to be transferred into the one-time funding reserve, and staff are recommending that this be used to offset the unfinanced amount on the county's financial statements due to the repayment of the Golden Town mortgage. During the year, the county receives donations for specific purposes, and any donations not spent in the year are needed to be transferred to a reserve to be utilized for these specific purposes in future years. In the last chart of the report, you'll find a list of donations by department, which are the long-term care homes, and that is totaling $20,300. I will take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Sue. Are there any questions? Councilor McQueen.
Thank you for that report. And just on the donations, are we able to offer a tax receipt on those donations depending on what they are for?
The answer is yes. Right. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. Oh, Councilor Gray.
Thank you very much for the report, and some bad news, good news, but lots of good news when there's a surplus. My question is, when we have this document in a go forward basis, when the county presents the next budget document, I'm a strong advocate for seeing an actual spend column, and this report kind of indicates the benefits of that. So would it be expected that for the 24 budget year, there would be a column that would be like 22 budget, 21 actual spend, and then the 23 budget, like a 22 or 21 actual, and then a 24 budget ask. And the background of that is some of it's in this report, so that gives you context. But furthermore, to give council context for items, I'm just going to use another example. Recently that we had an ask for approximately $15,000 in extra training in a budget request. It was asked then, well, what was the previous year's budget? And it was then further asked, what was the actual spend? And once those numbers were then placed in front of council, the context changed. And the $15,000 ask in the increased budget was in a different light because the budget already went up significantly. So I'm just wondering, like, is that something that council will see in the future in terms of comparison reporting because it does help when you're working through your surpluses and deficits that get reported in this document?
I'll ask Mary Lou to take that question, please.
Through you, Mr. Warden. And I'll just ask Councillor Greg to clarify. You're looking at the budget document, or are you asking about when we do financial reporting throughout the year?
I'm asking that it's most helpful when you're preparing for the future year budget. So I'm recognizing you're preparing the budget in advance of having your actuals for this year. So the best actuals you have are a year back, but they are still helpful for decision-making for that next year because it still gives you context. And the more context you have, it is better.
For the 2023 budget, it does have a 2021 actual column, the 2022 budget, the 2022 year-end projection, and then the 2023 budget column. And we also show a variance dollar-wise between the 2023 budget and the 2022 budget, and a percentage variance.
Okay, appreciate that, because that's good to know that will continue, because this is a document here that council can refer back to at budget time when you're taking a look at departmental costs and revenues and so forth. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. Good question. Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Sue. Sorry, Councillor McKay, did you have a question there?
No, I just had my hand up for voting for it.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. I just didn't want you to think I was ignoring you. Both you and Councillor Borden, you've been very well behaved so far today. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, moving along to the next one is a report on long-term redevelopment planning task force. CEO Wingrove is going to be presenting that one. Would someone care to move that motion? Councillor Pringle and Councillor Mackey.
Good morning, council. I'll just give our deputy clerk a moment to pull the slides up. Here we are. Okay, thank you. So as council, I think many of you are aware, this past Tuesday, the Long-Term Care Redevelopment Task Force met to receive a status update on the Rockwood Terrace project. Both the progress of the project so far and also costing. After considering the information presented at that meeting, the task force felt it was most appropriate that all of council hear this information and consider it together. And so what we wanted to do this morning was review that information for you with the goal of assisting you in making a decision on funding for the redevelopment of the Rockwood Terrace long-term care home. So a number of things that we're going to cover off this morning, just some background on long-term care operations and funding generally, the redevelopment project activities to date, information regarding funding, costs, and construction activity in the sector, which might be impacting our project. A little bit of an overview on borrowing for large capital projects, because that is kind of a unique thing. And then talking about the county's own future capital requirements. After we finish those discussions and answer any questions that you might have in open session, we will ask for council's support to move into closed to discuss some financial information that is belonging to the municipality specific to the future negotiations for the Rockwood project. So recognizing that some of you around the table are newer to long-term care, we wanted to just give a little bit of background here as a reminder. So the county has 3 homes. Grey Gables in Markdale was the site of the original Grey County House of Refuge and opened in 1903. Certainly, this is a rebuilt building compared to 1903, but the 66-bed home that you see now was rebuilt in 1999. Our second home, Lee Manor, just across the street, was opened in 1973, and it was a joint development of the Lee Estate, the city of Owen Sound, Grey County, and the province of Ontario. The county on its own undertook an extensive renovation of the 150 beds there in 2006. The third home, and the one that we're focused on today, is Rockwood Terrace. It was opened in 1984. It has 100 beds today. The plan is to move to 128 beds with a redesign. The home does require redevelopment to meet the revised provincial design standards. Its operating license expires in 2025. So moving into some of the financials. Those of you around the Horseshoe who sit on the Committee of Management, I think are very aware that the financials in long-term care are a complex undertaking. And I won't get into all of that today, but just to give you a flavor of where things are at. So the current long-term care budget operating in capital for the county totals $52.2 million. It was 31.2 in 2017. Residents in our long-term care homes pay between $1,794 or up to $2,563 per month as their rent to stay in the facility. And there are a few who have some special arrangements that might further lower those costs, but that is the regulated monthly fee depending on the kind of room that you're residing in. Grey County provides significant support to long-term care. This year it was $8.2 million, and that's up from 6.2 in 2017. Part of that is capital investment. Over the past 5 years, we've put nearly $4 million into our long-term care homes. And you can see the breakdown there between Grey Gables, Lee Manor, and Rockwood Terrace. I think it's important to note that because we've been aware that Rockwood Terrace would be redeveloped, we've done our best to ensure that we're keeping on top of repairs and maintenance, but we haven't undertaken the same amount of capital investment in Rockwood, knowing that we would be moving into a new facility. The last part of this slide is just to kind of demonstrate how the breakdown of responsibility for funding long-term care has shifted. And you can see here that, there's money that comes from the levy, from taxation. There's the portion that the residents themselves pay, a little bit of other revenue, and then the part that the province pays, and that comes to us from the LHIN, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Long-Term Care. And these changes, many of them are very recent as a result of the pandemic. The province has provided some significant funding into long-term care to help with things like infection prevention and control. There's new legislation that requires us to provide additional hours of care for resident, et cetera. So you can see the split there. So the part that Grey County is responsible for, the taxation portion, has recently, as a whole of that ever increasing number, our portion of it has been reduced. If it had stayed the same, when you look at how the costs have increased, if the county had continued to bear a 21% portion of the overall cost, our numbers would be quite a bit higher than they are. The piece that stayed stable through all of this is the resident payment. And so the resident's rent has stayed the same. The cost of providing the service has increased, so their proportional share shows as having decreased. I'll stop there. Everybody with me still? We're good? Okay, awesome. Because what the Rockwood project was proposed as a campus of care, I thought it was important to provide a little bit of background just about long-term care versus retirement and assisted living. Again, just to make sure that those of you who are new understand where those differences are. You need to qualify to go into long-term care. You have to meet a threshold, and I would, if you have questions about that, I'll turn that back over to Jen. But home and community care support services, part of the province, is responsible for qualifying people into long-term care. And there's that whole process about identifying the homes, the number of homes that you'd like to go into, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole process there that is independent of the county. Retirement and assisted living are different. They operate under different legislation, and individuals can apply to directly go into one of those facilities. Retirement homes offer communal living for those who really do have the ability to function independently. There's not normally nursing care at retirement homes, whereas assisted living provides some of that support with the activities of daily living, making sure people get their medications. There's potentially more meals there. And this is where the difference is. The province doesn't subsidize either assisted living or retirement. So the folks in those facilities pay significantly more than they do in long-term care. And you can see, I've noted here that assisted living monthly costs range somewhere between $5,000 and $7,500 a month as a cost to the resident. And there's certainly a wide variation across the province, although numbers that might be higher than that, but that's kind of where things are in general. So
Kim, I have a question. Counselor Greg?
Thanks, Warden Milne. May you, Kim, speak to that $5,000 to $7,000 in assisted living costs and whether or not that includes capitalization or any costs outside of just operating?
Thanks, Councillor Greg. We don't operate assisted living at this time. And those are the numbers that were quoted to us by various operators. I can only assume, since those are all the people that we spoke to are all private operators, that it would be reasonable to expect that their pro formas include all of the costs that they need to recover. But, every organization, every operation has its, unique characteristics and circumstances. And, depending on, and we'll get to this later on, depending on when something was built, those costs may be very, very different. Okay, that's okay. Thanks. All right, so on to specifics about our own Rockwood redevelopment project. The county is legally required to operate one long-term care home. We need one, but there is no limit to how many long-term care homes a county can operate. And across the province and across the Southwest, there are many counties that have more than one long-term care home like we do. The requirement is that each bed must be licensed. It's the license that connects you to the funding from the province. Unlike the private sector, though, we can't sell our licenses. They don't have any value. The private sector can negotiate with one another around long-term care bed licenses, but for the county, if we didn't require licenses, we would simply give a very lengthy notice to the province, and we would turn those licenses back. That's not anything that we're talking about right now. I'm just saying that that's the situation and the connection between our funding and the number of beds that we operate. So as far as the recent project activities, the redevelopment process is very highly regulated. The province lays out the whole process, and there are many milestones throughout that where the province undertakes some assessment of the work done to date and provides comments, and they either approve you to go forward to the next step in the process or send you back to do more work. We have had Colliers as our project manager to assist us throughout all of this. As I say, it's very, very technical and not something that you would want to undertake, I don't think, without having some good experience behind you. So we knew that we had approval to redevelop Rockwood Terrace to a 128-bed home back in 2019. And we started the site search and the due diligence on property and property acquisition later that same year. So in 2019, 2020, and it was in the spring of 2020 that we finally noted that the property that we have now is the property that we would be going forward with. We engaged Colliers as our project manager in May of 2021. And council took the decision to scope the Rockwood project as a campus of care in August of 2021. In March of last year, there was another report to the Long-Term Care Redevelopment Task Force and then to county, talking about what did you want that to look like? And we had a number of options that were assessed at the time. And the decision was taken that the project be scoped to include long-term care, assisted living, and a kind of a community space that we refer to as the Village Square. We had been looking at also developing a seniors apartment on that site. We do have 30 acres of property there. The determination last year was made that we would defer the seniors apartment for now. The last 12 months has been really devoted to detailed design and site planning.
Counselor Mackey.
Thanks, Kim. Before we go too much further, can you or Jen just speak to the rationale for the 128 beds, why we increased it from 100 to 128, please, for the benefit of new members?
The province has design guidelines that guide how the homes can be set up and operated. All of the research and best practice suggests that the residents have the highest quality of life if their living arrangements are as close to a home or a community feel as they can be, rather than something that's very institutional. And I think you see that in spades in the way that Jen and her team work to try and, make sure that people are having just the best life that they can when they're staying with us. But they talk about resident home areas, and the what's supported or what's most efficient to operate is what they call a 32-bed resident home area. So when you've got 4 32s, which is what we've got here, that's how you get the 128. Okay, thank you, Scott. All right, where am I? Okay, so we were done with this slide. Moving on from there into some redevelopment costing and funding information. If we look back to 2020, which is 3 years ago and 5 lifetimes, the long-term care capital development funding policy provided for a 128-bed home, which is what we would be building. They provided 19.4 million over 25 years to support that build. So if we look back in time, if you think about a budget of $400,000 a bed, for example, that meant that an operator would be responsible for about 2/3 of the cost. I think we're all aware that the province, going back as far as 2018, I think, was making commitments about wanting to see a significant number of new long-term care beds be created in the province. At that 2/3 cost responsibility on the operators, they weren't, I think, seeing maybe as much uptake on new construction as they might have liked. And you can see the numbers here. So looking between the July of 2018 to December of 2022, in that time frame, they saw 1,228 new beds added and 1,154 renovated. So in November of last year, the new additional funding for construction was announced. And I think many of us were on the council orientation when that announcement came through. So welcome, a really significant top up to that funding. And you can see the result. So as of December 2022, now we have 364 projects in the development pipeline. And I can't tell you exactly how many of them came as of November and how many were, in play then, but we have a significant number of projects in the development pipeline, 31,705 new beds planned and another 28,648 planned for redevelopment. So that's significant. So when November we were told there was new funding coming, in February, the ministry sent a letter letting us know that in order to actually obtain that funding, there were a number of timelines and milestones that you needed to meet. Most significantly, it was that you had to have the project completely designed, completely tendered, all of your funding in place and everything for August of this year. So unless you were quite far along, you were probably not going to make that August deadline. I can tell you just a little bit to go back again for a moment about the number of new beds. Jen was able to find a little bit of information about specifically in southwestern Ontario, specifically how many beds are being redeveloped. A number of them are private, similar to the development that we saw in Owen Sound. For example, in Huron-Perth, there's 544 new beds in various homes being redeveloped in Godrich and Exeter and Morris Turnbury. Oxford County in January of this year put forward an application to the province for 160 new beds at the site of the Alexandra Hospital in Ingersoll. They're looking to develop 160 beds there at a cost of 94.5 million. There will be some synergies there, I think, with the hospital, and we've seen a couple of examples like that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mary Lou to speak to some of the specifics around the funding model and how that works.
So there's a number of components to the redevelopment funding. So we've got the planning grant. We knew about it for years. The dollar value hasn't changed. It was once you got to a certain milestone, they would release the $250,000. The piece that Kim just spoke of that they announced in November. So the CFS construction grant and the CFS top up. The $15 and the $20, you do the math, that's $35. They said that if you wish to take that $15 component up front when your construction starts, you could do so. If you take it over the 25 years, it would come to $17,520,000. However, there is a catch. If you take it early, what they call it is a discounted net present value. Because they're not paying it to you over the 25 years, you're taking it up front. There's a discount of $7,152,000. So we would get the $10,300,000 and change if we took this in 2023. There is an advantage to doing so because if you took and had to borrow that $17,520,000 over the 20 years, it would cost you more in interest than what the discount is. The base construction funding, that hasn't changed. That's $20.78. And they pay that annually based on date of first occupancy. Same with the 75 cents for a medium home component. The development grant is a maximum of $29,246 per bed. And there's a number of criteria of what's eligible and what's ineligible in order to calculate the costs. And based on what we're seeing, we would be eligible for the full amount. That's $3,743,488. And that's paid at substantial completion. So in total, what we could expect to receive over 25 years is just under $63 million. And that's assuming you took that top up front. We spoke a little bit about this before, how you fund something of that magnitude. So a construction loan would be taken to finance the project, and then it would be converted into a 25-year debenture. And we've always looked at it and said we would do it to match up with the length of time that the province provides the construction subsidy. So that would be your term. Depending on how much the interest rate is for construction loan and how much your 25-year debenture is. So the benefit with Infrastructure Ontario is that we can get a 25-year mortgage, unlike a personal homeowner who would have a maximum 5-year term. So at some point, we would be analyzing what we would call the tipping point of what the construction loan interest is versus would we borrow? So potentially you could end up borrowing as early as 2025. That is contingent on how much your levy requirement that you're raising from taxation is. So as I've just mentioned, we can access funds through Infrastructure Ontario. Their representative has said, once we put in an application, because it's over $25 million, it takes about 2 months or so minimum to go through their board. And a municipal application is processed faster than a for-profit. In order to move forward with that, we would need a borrow-in bylaw. How much can we borrow? So our debt management policy states that our annual debt, both external and internally borrowed, should not exceed 10% of our own source revenue. The annual repayment limit just came out for 2023. 25% of our own source revenue is the maximum that the province says it should be borrowed, would give us 17,557,000 and change. At 10% of that ARL limit, we are just under 8.1 million. And after you look at our internal debt, we have just shy of 7.3 million remaining. So based on our current commitments, we could borrow another 108.6 million, assuming a 4.5% interest for 25 years. When we looked at 10-year capital last summer, we've talked about a number of projects that would be impacted should we move forward with a borrow of 108 million. The 2023 to 2032 capital forecast showed we had a levy requirement of 305.6 million over 10 years, and 19.6 of that was in this year. We did reduce the levy contribution to capital by 4.7 million to 14.9 million in the 2023 approved budget. So this defers projects and expenses to future years. In some cases, we took money from reserve, and it's the same as our own rainy day fund at home. You only can access your rainy day fund for so long. There are a number of things that aren't included in the 10-year forecast. We know that there's an increasing need for social housing. There's reduced funding. There's investments in paramedic infrastructure that we saw through their recent report from the consultant. We have rising capital and renewal replacement costs due to inflation. We have an unquantified impact of the cost to address climate change targets. We also don't know the impact in the next few years on Bill 23, both from the inflation and interest rates and how much that's going to impact our DC revenue. The other thing I didn't include on the slide is, of course, like any other municipality, we have aging infrastructure. The current Class B cost estimate is 125.7 million plus a post-contract contingency. There'd be 8.7 million in construction loan interest. Total project cost of about 140 million. We would borrow 108 million. We would need $5,270,000 in annual debenture payments. And some of these amounts would not be precise. And I'm saying that because we're having to estimate the timing of cash flows out to the contractors, which then affects how much construction loan interest we're going to pay. It also assumes a 25-year term with a 4.5% interest rate. Construction loan interest right now is 4.88%. And when I looked yesterday, a 25-year borrow was 4.35%. So it does change quite frequently across the month. results in 72.2 million in the debenture interest over the 25-year term. That doesn't include the construction loan interest of the 8.7 million. So you'd be looking at $80 million in interest for the project. And as a result of increasing both the size of the building footprint and the number of residents, it's reasonable to expect that we're going to have an increase in the operating budget. And I'll pause and ask if there's any questions.
Any questions regarding Councillor Nielsen?
Thank you very much, Warden. Just a quick question in terms of the funding. Am I correct right now? There's no calculation given to the current Rockwood Terrace building and anything that could potentially happen there. This is just progressing forward. There's no outside source funding that way.
Through you, Mr. Warden. That's correct. Currently in the budget, there is $1,361,000 as a transfer to reserve, which was the amount of the debenture payment that we had from Lee Manor when we did that work. And there is no current assumption that we would sell there'd be value in selling the existing Rockwood Terrace or taking into account any of, if we were to sell any of the surplus land.
Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Mary Lou, when you were a year and a half ago or whenever it was when we first got the report, interest rates, we all are aware interest rates have went up. What was the rate that you were quoted back at that time when we were looking at this project? Whoops, sorry.
When we did the analysis at that time, we looked at, we were using 400,000 a bed at 3% interest and 4% interest. And interest at that period was about 2.5%.
Any other questions so far? Okay. Thank you, Mary Lou. Kim, you have more? You want to go into closed session now to discuss further? Okay. Right. So do I have a motion to go into closed session? Councillor McQueen and Councillor Carlton. All those in favor? That is carried. And so we want CAO Wingrove, Randy Schertzer, Chair Warder, Sarah Goldrup, Rob Hatton, Jen Cornell, and Mary Lou Spicer to remain. And Karen as well. Thank you.